Hi guys, it's Kyarko here, back with another speed build. Asia Graham, you requested a dark fairy house, and that's exactly what I built. This was really fun to do because I immediately had this concept of like this old abandoned family home that was like taken over by this dark fairy and has like this tree growing right through it. Kind of like nature reclaimed this old home was just the idea. And as you can see, I already started setting that up with the tree growing out the top. There was kind of a logistical challenge with the tree, and just in terms of how the Sims work, because I put that tree on the second level of, you know, the level grid things. So what I ended up doing is there's a tree on top on the second level, and then there's a tree on the first level in the living room. So although there are technically two trees that I use, in my imagination I was figuring that it was like one tree, and the trunk of the tree was just kind of extended up into the outside area. So you'll see in more detail how I end up doing that. But here I am just putting on the roof. I went with an interesting style. I used some of the architecture from the Snowy Escape pack, so I guess you could say this is somewhat Japanese inspired, but it's not really, not very specifically. It's just like an old cabin. Like the architectural style is just like old cabin-y, I guess. I mean, it could be Japanese. Like I just didn't have that in mind when I was doing it, but it could definitely work that way. I don't know, in Japanese culture, do they have like a myths and stuff about like fairies and like dark fairies and evil fairies too? I'm not sure. That'd be really cool to find out. Maybe I'll do a build like that in the future, like inspired by the evil mystical creatures of like other or different cultures. That'd be really dope. I might do that. Anyways, here I am just putting a bunch of moss and grass like on every single wall of the house. I really wanted it to seem overgrown. Definitely, as I said before, like nature was reclaiming this. Like this dark fairy came and they used their powers to just totally reclaim this old human home with their, you know, evil plants. Because like I know that like nature is like a good thing, right? But like fairies inherently, I feel like work with nature. So a dark fairy in my mind is a fairy who still works with nature, but in like a dark evil way. Kind of like in, you know that legend where fairies like eat human children and stuff. They like steal human babies and they like replace them with their own, and then they like eat the human babies. Is that fairies? I think that's a fairy legend, I think. I'm not sure where that's from, but that's kind of the idea I was going with. You'll see I even put like a bassinet in the kitchen later on as like a dark little nod to that fable. But I definitely knew that this fairy had was very in touch with nature, just in like an evil way, I guess. But here I am setting up the outside. While it is overgrown and nature is reclaiming, I definitely wanted to make it seem, you know, planned. Like this is this fairy's home and they want it to look nice. I put that little thing outside out the front of the wall that's like, I'm not sure what it is. It's from the Snowy Escape pack. I ended up deleting it just because I didn't feel like it was going with what I was going for. So that goes away. But here I'm just setting up the outside. I'm actually really proud of like the landscaping and like how I did the outdoors of this house. Because as I said in my previous builds, I'm not very confident in my skills on how I deal with outdoor landscaping and outdoor planning. It's just not my strong suit. I feel like I'm a lot better at interiors, but I like to challenge myself, and I feel like I did some new stuff here and I'm pretty happy with it actually. So I just had this little entryway, just this dirt path. As you can see, I put some rocks down too, so it seemed a little bit more planned. Going back, putting in the doors really quick just to get into the house. Put a little light there. I'm going with this spiky light. I thought it was pretty cool, kind of evil looking. And then back out here, I end up putting, you'll see, I put a skull by this tree. It's kind of like a dark little touch. What I was imagining is like, maybe the skull is part of like a magic ritual having to do with the tree, or maybe like the skull is how like fairies mark like a grave for other evil fairies. And like the tree's dead, so maybe it's something like that. I don't know. That was cool. Put a cauldron, which I know is kind of witchy, less fairy-y, but in my head I thought it worked. I was like, you know what, they gotta make potions and stir pots and stuff too, I guess. Putting some greenery on top of the roof here just to make the tree look more grown through. And then here I am, as you could see, trying to figure out how to get a trunk through the living room, because that's how I wanted the tree to be perceived, as being like growing right through the living room of the home. This took me a minute to figure out placement wise, but you'll see in a minute it just ends up going about right there, and then out the top it still looks like the tree's growing through the house. So mission accomplished. Here I'm putting up walls. So for this build, I was like, it's a traditional home, right? But I didn't want the fairy to have like a separate bedroom. It's kind of like a studio plan layout, and that's mainly because I just thought that I wasn't imagining this so traditionally, like the fairy had like their own bedroom and the bathroom. I thought it was more like an overgrown home, and the fairy just kind of like just kind of made it their own. I don't know how to explain my thought process, but here I am just putting in a bunch of plants, making sure the house looks overgrown too. Definitely like nature is just totally destroying and gutting the inside of this place. Here I am sitting with the kitchen. I actually end up changing this kitchen because like initially I was like, okay, maybe it's like ornate and like this fairy likes ornate shiny things. But then I was like, it didn't really go with the whole like nature reclaiming thing. It was a lot too, I don't know, too planned, too grand, I guess. So I ended up going with a more low-key style, which also just indicates again that this used to be a human home that a fairy took over. So you could see me in a second, not yet, I guess, but in a second I just completely redo this kitchen along with that sink. This is a bad idea. I look at this, I'm glad that I went in a different direction. I'm just waiting for it. Yeah, so what inspired the changes, I put in these rugs, and I was like, oh, these rugs are really cool, but they don't go with the kitchen. So kept the rugs, scrapped the kitchen, ended up going with these cabinets, or not cabinets, counters, because they were just much more of the vibe. Looked a lot more like this house was actually a human's house at one point that this fairy took over. I use old-fashioned appliances. The stove and the fridge are both very old looking. Put in that sink over there. Put in some plants. Definitely wanted to make it feel like this fairy was trying to make this place like their own, you know? So even though like nature is reclaiming and regrowing, I still wanted this fairy to actually have like little planted things here and there. And here I am just decorating the kitchen now, just throwing in some things I thought made it look more fairy-y, a little bit more evil, but at the same time still very used. Like she or they, I don't know, I didn't really think about this character themselves, so that's why I'm just calling them they, because I didn't really plan in my head who this person is yet. Here I am putting in the bassinet, so like they eat babies. I know I shouldn't be laughing, but it's just, it's a funny dark touch, I guess, is what I was going for. Yeah, I put it right in the kitchen too. That's so on the nose. I love that. Anyways, I put in that little washing thing, a little washing tub, and then here I'm just setting up a little dining room for their fairy friends to come and feast on the baby. Hung up some like herbs and stuff, put in a broom, just putting stuff on the wall to make it look more decorated, like the person actually lives here. Or not I mean, they're a fairy. Does that make them a person? Are they, because person, doesn't that mean human? So are they, I don't know. Can I say person? Does that apply to fairies? You know what, never mind. I end up putting in a grand piano in this corner, which is a big move. I just didn't know what I wanted to put here, and I was like, you know what, maybe this fairy likes like music and like dark music, and like that's another way that they can like use their mystical powers or something. So I ended up putting in this grand piano. I did think about putting in the organ for a second, but it just looked a little bit too ornate. I like this piano because it seemed like maybe the piano was here in the house when the fairy came and reclaimed it. But in this place, I put in the bed. Just went with this wireframe because again, it just looked like something maybe the humans left behind and the fairy just kind of took over as their bed. Putting in some side tables. I went with this one that I love because I love how the paint looks all scratched off. Candles, little decoration things. Let's see, put a mouse hole over there for some reason. Put some paintings on the wall. Do I put it in a bench? I don't think I do. And then in this corner, I just end up making like a little living space. There's no technology in this because I was like, why would a dark fairy have a laptop? I mean, like for playability, I would put tech in this, but like, I don't think I'm gonna play this story because there's not fairies in The Sims yet. I mean, no, I know there's mods, I think, to make fairies. But if I had to do this in game, I'd probably just end up making a witch anyways, because that's the closest thing, I think. But yeah. Over here, put in a bookshelf, and of course, this seat that I love. If you know anything about me or my channel, this seat is a recurring guest. I love this chair. It's so beautiful. Here I am putting in another painting, just decorating the space. I like that painting. It seems like another thing that the humans left, that the fairy liked and just left there. Put in a wardrobe over here. As you can see, most of my lighting is candles. I try not to use any digital lighting other than the overheads, but those are just for my ability to see. But the actual lighting that I use for the purpose of decoration, they're all candles, because I definitely wanted this to seem like the fairy was refraining from using actual technology. Put in a mirror over the sink. I actually end up really liking how this bathroom looks. I put a bunch of candles around the bathtub, you'll see in a minute. Here I'm doing that now. I just think the effect is really cool. Definitely a place I'd love to take a bath. So creepy, but like still a vibe. Putting ivy on the walls. Again, such a vibe. Taking your bath by your candles with like a bunch of ivy behind you. Definitely nice. Put that well outside, just adjust my paths a little bit to make it seem more planned. And I believe that is the build, right? Yeah, right? I don't do anything else. Yeah, that is the build. So thank you so much to Asia Graham for that suggestion. This was really fun to make. I had a really good time doing it. Got a lot of fun ideas, like the baby eating idea was definitely a fun one, wasn't it? Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Keep recommending stuff. I love doing these. And I will see you next time.